Hi there, my name is Toby, and on this channel I talk about energy in all different ways. I talk about it philosophically, spiritually and scientifically. And this energy is the chi, the ether, the life force, or the force. It's all the same thing. And today I'm going into more detail about light, ether physics. So I'm talking scientifically today. Now this is very important. I'm going to go into more detail about light, the speed of light, what that is and how it works. Is essentially the hysteresis of the ether. The resistance of the ether against itself is what creates the speed of light. And I'm going to go into details about that. And in fact, everything is light. Everything is ether. Ether is the one pure fluid field. It's a field of metaphysics. It's not physical, unmanifest. Got to understand that first of all, unmanifest. It is consciousness. It is information, mathematics, even imagination. All of that is in ether, unmanifest, pure fluid energy. Well, I'm calling it energy, but it's unmanifest energy. Potential energy, infinite potential energy. It's also rest, it's stillness, it's balance. So the ether must always be balanced. It means from this perfect infinite field of potentiality, disturbances happen. This disturbance is energy, manifest energy, objective energy. And because it's a disturbance, energy is created, it's gone out of balance. It must go back to balance. So energy and entropy always come together. They work together. Because in totality, the ether must be balanced. There must be balance in the force. We all know that one. So that's how it works. But let's go into detail, because ether becomes energy and energy is light. We can also just call it light. All energy. You see, even heat. I've got a heater down here. It's not done anything yet. But this heat is still light. It's infrared radiation. It's heat. You see, it's still all electromagnetism. All energy is electromagnetism. Even kinetics, gravity. Now I've got big objects. I've got kinetics. Things will happen. So this appears to be a different type of energy, kinetic energy, but it's still built upon electromagnetics. It's a particular effect that happens once you have got atoms. But the atoms come from electromagnetism. They are created by electromagnetism. So this is a lump of trapped energy, trapped electromagnetism. It's stuck in the atoms. And once that happens, you've got another effect, which we can call gravity or kinetics. But you see, in kinetics, you've got friction. What's friction? Friction is electrostatics. It's still electrostatics. Everything is electromagnetism. It just requires some explanation as to how it works, how we get there. So that's what I'm going to try and tell you today. So how does light work? What is it? And what is the speed of light? Because we measure the speed of light, everyone knows it, in a vacuum. So a vacuum means empty space, nothing there, and light still travels through it at a speed. So what is that speed? Well, nothing is traveling. First of all, we've got to understand, nothing is being emitted and nothing is traveling. It is simply a disturbance in the ether. The ether is vibrating, and that vibration creates a ripple effect. And that ripple effect is traveling. But that ripple is a disturbance that is traveling. It's not something coming out. It's not a thing coming out and going along. It's a disturbance of a thing moving along. So you've got to understand the difference. It's like if you throw a rock in a pond, the ripples, it will make a ripple, the ripple will go out through the pond. So you can see that the ripple is moving, traveling, the wave is traveling, but the water in the pond is stationary. Think about it. The water is not coming out of the pond, except, dramatic cases, but the water is just going up and down a little bit. That's all that's happening. A little disturbance in the water is moving along, but the whole body of water is still stationary. So that body of water is the ether, and the disturbance is traveling through the ether, and that disturbance is the speed of light. That is light. And what is the speed? Why is there a speed? Well, it's the same. If I chuck a rock in a pond, it creates a ripple, a wave. And that wave will travel at a certain speed. And why? How do we know the speed? The speed is governed by the density of the water and the surface tension of the water. You see, the surface tension creates a sort of elasticity, a bounce. And again, the density of the water affects when the rock hits it. The density of the water creates a resistance. There's a resistance to the rock going in, but the surface tension bounces back. There's two things going on. There's a density and an elasticity. That's what creates the wave. So it's the same in the ether. The hysteresis, it's called a hysteresis, resistance or drag. It's dragging against itself. So when you drop the rock in a pond, it pulls down. There's a drag. The water is dragging down, but it springs back due to surface tension. So now you've got this ripple effect, and it travels out. So what is this? Why have we got this effect in the ether? Because, well, the ether we know is infinite. It's metaphysical. So it's everywhere and it's nowhere. So how can anything travel in it? Well, this is how it works. So when the disturbance is created in the ether, so the first thing that happens, ether is metaphysics, consciousness, soul, spirit. It has a desire, an intention. This comes first. Desire and intention creates a disturbance in the ether. Very intense disturbance of the ether gets localized, and until it gets so powerful that the disturbance actually becomes electromagnetism and objective disturbance. See, desire and intention is still subjective, it's internal, metaphysical, but when that gets powerful enough, it becomes objective, physical. So the very first thing that is created is electricity. Well, static electricity, dielectricity, a charge, a potential of energy. But it has to come from a point. Remember, the ether is everywhere and nowhere from our perspective. So for us to see energy coming into creation, where does it come from? It can only come from nowhere, a point. So the energy has to come from a point. And the first thing that will come out is this electrostatic charge. In this electrostatic charge, a potential will stretch away from a point. So it's never going to come from one place to another place. What will happen is it comes from one point and diverges away from that one point. Quite literally like an elastic band. So the elastic band is the resistance. So, okay, a static charge is created. That's the first thing. But immediately there's a resistance. What is the resistance? Well, the resistance is entropy. There has to be a force that wants to pull it back again. So a charge is created, then immediately afterwards, magnetism, a force is created to pull it back. So now we've got two things happening, and there's a very slight delay. You see, there's a difference. There's two things working together as one. So the moment it's created, it bursts out. It's diverging, but straight away now it's starting to pull back. So it's bursting out, but it's bursting out against a resistance. So already it's bursting out, and then there's a resistance. It's got a resistance to bursting out. That creates a density, a feeling of resistance. Just like when the rock hits the water is a resistance. So in the ether, the resistance is created by magnetism. So electrostatic's trying to burst out, but it's now got to fight against electromagnetism. So you can think of the moment of creation like this. Electrostatics bursts out, it's exploding out, but straight away, it's slowing down. Magnetism pulls it back in. Then magnetism overpowers it, pulls it back in, but then it bursts out again. It goes out, then magnetism pulls it in. So it's a little bit more complicated than that because they are transverse wave, they're working at different angles. But light is actually coaxial. It's inside and outside. So again, it's difficult to visualize this. And don't forget, it's going to come out spherically. The disturbance I'm saying is in a line, but of course it's going to create a sphere. And saying that, electrostatics is quite literally a line. You've got a line of inertia. A point of inertia stretches out into a line of inertia. But the line of inertia is what's happening is the magnetic field is bouncing back and creating a sphere. So it's always coming out and bouncing back, coming back and bouncing back, and it's going round and round and round and round like this. So the electrostatics, the dielectricity, then creates magnetism, and there's a slight delay. That delay is going to be governed by the golden ratio. And this is very, very important in mathematics. This is the very nature of creation itself. That is the point of creation. Creation and then a resistance to that creation. Or energy, then immediately there's entropy. So there's already a dynamism happening. You've got the energy bursting out, and then you've got resistance to that energy bursting out. And then when now you've got a hysteresis, you've got a resistance, and now we've got the speed of light, And the speed of light is basically to do with what I was saying here, creation of energy or a disturbance in the ether. So let's just say you've got a light bulb. Okay, here's a light bulb here. So the light is off. I turn the light on. Bang. Now I'm actually creating that light. That light is being created. Well, you'd argue, well, it's being transformed from electricity. Electricity is going to an LED, a semiconductor, and then that's doing some effect. Energy is going into the semiconductor, and then light is coming out. Well, what's actually happening, again, I talk about this in many different lectures. See, energy is not so much energy is being transformed, but energy is stimulating other energy to be created. It's more like that. So it's more like energy is always created and destroyed. It's not transformed. But what you have is you have to create a system, a setup that uses energy, but that setup stimulates another system that creates energy. So for example here, this light, electricity is one system coming through the wires. That goes to the semiconductor LED. That goes in, so that energy does something to the semiconductor substance, such that it triggers them to release light. It's a different frequency. So one frequency of energy goes into the atoms, electricity, but another frequency comes out of the atoms, light. That's what's happening. So light is being created from here, disturbance. So this disturbance is propagating through the ether at a particular speed. But it will also go through this crystal. So now it's going through an object. So when light travels through another medium, it's now actually passing through a group of atoms. It's passing through atomic structures. In the ether, it's just passing through nothing. The ether itself, empty space, nothingness. Here it's passing through a structure of atoms. It's going to have another effect. You see, because the structure of atoms, as the light passes through it, it's stimulating the atoms. They're creating more of a drag. They're slowing it down. So we know that light will slow down in another medium. You know that is refraction of light. Light will bend in water. But we see what they don't tell you is if once it comes out of this crystal, it goes in, it slows down, it comes out, it speeds up again. How can light speed up again? This is one of the biggest arguments against modern science, because this totally disproves the first law of thermodynamics, which I was telling you, totally disproves it. They believe that energy is always conserved. It must be conserved in any system. Then you've got to ask them, well, if light slows down in a medium, when it comes out again, it speeds up again. How can it speed up again? It means that the energy has gone up again. If it goes through a medium, it slows down, it's lost energy. It means when it comes out of the medium, it must still be going slower. But it doesn't, it speeds up. How can it speed up? It's got more energy. It's lost energy and then suddenly it's got energy. That is the biggest, simplest argument against the first law of thermodynamics. They can't explain it. But if you know ether, you can. Because nothing is travelling. There's nothing travelling through this crystal. Light is going through it, but what is going through it? A disturbance of the ether. A disturbance of the ether. You see, imagine you've got imagine you can have such a thing. You've got water, and then you've got custard. You can have people have done that. A swimming pool full of custard. If you drop something in that, it's slower. It'll go jelly. There you go. Let's have jelly. So if you could have water, then jelly, and then water like that. You drop a rock in the water, it will create a wave at a certain speed. You'll see it'll go out. Then it'll hit the jelly, it'll go slower, whoa, like that. Then it will come to the other water and it would speed up again. You'll be able to see it. The reason is it's not anything travelling, it's a disturbance of a medium. So this water is moving because it's only going up and down, but it's going up and down because of its own particular density and elasticity. So then it hits the custard or the jelly. When it hits that, it's a different density, a different elasticity. It has to slow down according to that medium. But then when it disturbs the water this side, it's a different medium again. It's going up and down, but it'll go up and down according to its density and elasticity. So that's why light will speed up again. And the only way to explain that is ether. Only way. You have to have ether. You can't deny it. It's the real science. And the hysteresis then is the speed of light in its own medium, in itself. But of course it slows down in other mediums. It's always slower. You can't speed it up. It doesn't speed up in another medium. Always slows down. Why? Because these mediums are heavier. They're thicker, greater density. They got a tighter elasticity. You can't move them much. These atoms are not going to move at all. So what's happening is when the light hits these atoms in the crystal, you see it fills up the crystal. It's amplified by the crystal. It permeates through them. The light hits one of the beginning of the structure, and it just vibrates the structure. And the whole structure has to vibrate together. Again, it's called coherence. Everything works together. So then all the atoms in the crystal are vibrating with the light in the same way, and it fills up. The light fills up. But when it comes out, it's gone back to the air, moving through the air, or the ether itself. But air, again, light is moving through air. Air is slightly different to space. So there will be slightly different speed in air, very slightly slower, because air molecules are still going to slow it down a little bit, And again, people don't believe it. Modern science doesn't believe that magnetism can affect light, but it can. You see, they believe that gravity will affect light, so gravity will bend it, i.e. slow it down, but gravity and magnetism are the same thing. Gravity is a particular effect of magnetism once you've got a lot of atoms. But atoms come from electromagnetism, so there is only electromagnetism. It's an effect when you get a lot of them. Like I said, all energy is electromagnetism, even kinetics and gravity. It's just a particular effect that happens. And again, I'm going to go into more detail about kinetics in time, friction. But for now, I'm talking about hysteresis, the speed of light and how it works. Now again, let's look at the golden ratio, because this is so important. The creation moment, ether creates electrostatics. That rebounds with magnetism and creates this density and elasticity, conductivity and permittivity, if you want to think about electrical energy. So that's why it's got its own speed, but that's governed by, there's only one solution to this. Only one way this can possibly work, mathematically. That's why there's only one objective reality. There's only one world, material world like this. Because there's only one way, one mathematical solution that will allow this infinite field of ether, metaphysical potential, infinite, we can't comprehend it, to become manifest, objective, so that we can all share it. This is an objective reality that we all share. There has to be rules. It has to have laws of physics, otherwise we can't share it. We can all have our fantasy worlds, but we can't share them. This one we have to share. It follows rules. And there's only one mathematical rule that allows it to happen. It's based on the golden ratio. And the golden ratio governs the very creation, the balance between the electrostatics and the magnetics. So the field comes out as electrostatics, rebounds as magnetism, and it goes round and round and round and round, like this. So it comes out and it rebounds back. And in fact, you can think of it as a spiral. So one spirals out one way and then it spirals in the other way. And there's the golden ratio between the poles. There's a difference in the North Pole and the South Pole, and there's some relation due with the golden ratio. So you get egg shapes. There's also egg shapes occur. That's the golden ratio. And again, like I said, the hysteresis, this delay between energy coming out and rebounding back, this also creates time. You see, there's no time. The ether is outside time. A disturbance happens. Now you have to have time. Something's happened and it must unhappen. Something happens, it must unhappen. So time is created because there is a delay. Energy is created and then a slight delay and then it's pulled back. And that delay is the golden ratio, it's that proportion. So time itself is created because there's a hysteresis of the ether. It has its own resistance. So the speed of light means the creation of time, put it that way. The creation of time, the creation of light, speed of light is all explained by the hysteresis of the ether, which is explained by the proportionality of the electrostatic energy created and the magnetic energy of entropy as it wants to be destroyed. There's a delay. And that's based on the golden ratio. And the whole universe is because of that golden ratio. So it will be everywhere. Even a creation of a neutron, there's going to be some golden ratio in the creation of a neutron. You see, so now, again, the speed of light, and you've got different frequencies. Very low frequency, very high frequency. But it's all still energy, all still light, all still electromagnetism. And super high frequency light, what happens is at super high frequency, again, the disturbance is coming out, rebounding, coming out, rebounding, coming out, rebounding. But if it comes out so fast and rebounds, you see, because it comes out at a certain speed, it's traveling away. As it travels away, or it's, the disturbance is traveling away, it's looking for another point of inertia. Imagine it this way, the energy is created, the vibration is created, a disturbance, but the moment that disturbance happens, it's got to disappear. It wants to go to rest. It's going off out, looking for somewhere to end. But at a certain speed, it's coming from its own point. It's so fast, it's pulled back. It's pulled right back. And so it sort of electrostatics releases, but it going back, and it pulls back on itself and creates a little loop. So now you've got the electric and the magnetic looping around themselves. Now you've got a particle, that's a standing wave, a free-floating standing wave in the ether, a disturbance of the ether that is now self-sustaining all by itself. It's going round and round. It's like a snake chasing its own tail. It can't go back. It's trying to get to the middle, but it can't. Now you've got a particle. So now this is where you have another effect. And this particle is all by itself, and it can interact with the rest of the universe. So now you've got this other effect of particles. But that particle in itself, to sustain itself, will have the golden ratio. There's going to be interesting things going on in there. Then you'll have a proton. Neutron becomes a proton. It changes slightly. It's the same particle, just different frequency, different effect. So you have a neutron is neutral, a proton is polarized. So you have depolarized matter and polarized matter. Now you've got everything. Now you've got protons and neutrons. You can create everything. Electron is not a particle. Electron is still just energy. And J.J. Thomson, the guy who discovered the electron, he said the electron is 1 unit of dielectricity. So it's literally just the quantity of electricity. Now again, let's talk about electricity. I've talked about light is a disturbance traveling through the ether, traveling through things. Electricity is something else. It's still traveling through things. See, it's traveling through the wires. But electricity is the other aspect. You see, there's the dielectric and the magnetic. It's still always the two things happening. So when you got this thing traveling through a medium like wire, now you've got something like electricity. You can think of it like that. It's a different frequency of light, electromagnetism, traveling through a particular medium. That creates electricity. Now let's look at lightning. Lightning is another idea. So lightning is electrostatics. It just jumps through the clouds. But what's happening is it's created from a point. It will come out of a point of inertia. But as it explodes from a point of inertia, where does it go? It's looking for another point of inertia to go to disappear. So it bursts out, it will go to another one. But it's so powerful, this electrostatics, that it ionizes the air. So it becomes electricity. It's like an electric current traveling through the air. And it's going from one point of inertia to another point of inertia. It's electricity now. I know we're calling it electrostatics. The electrostatics builds up. But when the electrostatics travels through a medium, it becomes electricity. You think of it like that. But it's a little bit more complicated. It's still a field. You see, you've got a magnet here like this. This is still electrostatics. North pole and south pole. This is like the plus and minus. It's still bursting out of a point. Now, if you had another magnet on top, another magnet on top, another magnet on top, another magnet on top, very long magnet, it will still have a line of North Pole at the top, South Pole here. It's still going to be the same. If you stretch this magnet out to a long thin wire, now you've got a plus and a minus on either end. That's becoming an electric current. So the electric current in the wire is still magnetism. It's still the field outside the wire. It's still a field. It's always the same thing. It's just different effect based on mediums. So like I said, lightning is electrostatics. It bursts out. It travels through the air. It ionizes the air, creates a plasma. But really, a plasma just means electric current traveling through the air. And then it goes to the other point of inertia and disappears down there. So that's electricity. And again, that will have its own speed, its own hysteresis based on what is going on. And then there's other things. You see, now we're still talking about a disturbance of the ether, but there's other things called resonance. Resonance is very interesting. This is what quantum mechanics talk about: instantaneous action at a distance, or quantum entanglement. Instantaneous action happens because of the ether. It's outside space and time. Resonance happens because of the ether. Again, metaphysics. Two things resonate like this. Imagine these are two things. They resonate because of geometry. The shape of this hand is geometric. Okay, this hand is physical, but the shape is not. The shape is an abstract concept, a pattern. That's information, that's metaphysics. Because the shape, the geometry is like this, and now this hand has got the same shape, geometry, they are connected. They are connected with geometry, and geometry is in the ether, it's metaphysics. So it doesn't matter the distance between these two things, they will always resonate because they're resonating in the ether. Instantaneous. It's outside, it's nothing to do with the distance between them. The distance between them is in this material reality, but they are connected because of geometry. Do you see? And they also have to be, the same substance to have an effect. For example, two metal coils, they've got to be the same substance and the same geometry, but then they will resonate. And they can't explain why they resonate, because there's no transfer of energy, nothing is crossing over. So again, already resonance defeats the argument for first law of thermodynamics. It is connecting through metaphysics. We're already using metaphysics all the time. We're just denying it. Oh, it's not metaphysics. It is. It's metaphysics. If we could just accept it, we would have a whole new type of technology. So I hope this little talk made sense. The hysteresis of the ether is to do with density and elasticity of the medium, or it's to do with resistivity or permittivity and conductivity of the medium. And that is created because there's a slight delay. Energy is created and immediately wants to disappear again because of the nature of the ether. The ether is balance, rest. If you're going to disturb the balance, it can't continue. It must return to balance. The force must be balanced. That's what the Jedi are doing, balancing the force. That's what healing is, balancing the force, settling all the disturbance, and then centering it into a point of inertia, into the midpoint, the balance point. From that point of inertia, you can create energy if you want. You can also destroy energy if you want. You can disappear again. If you can control a point of inertia, now you're mastering energy. You can do it metaphysically with your soul spirit, but you can also do it technologically. We've done it. We've got a point of inertia. We've made one in here. It's quite weak, but it's still powerful. It's not natural. This does not occur naturally. We had to make this substance, neodymium magnet. So that is technology. We made it already. So we can do it. So I hope this little talk made sense. Please leave me any questions or comments below, and check out the rest of this series, Aether Physics. Go to my homepage and look through my playlists. I've got so many subjects. Just skip through the playlist, have a look at them, and just look at the subject and see what you like. Every talk I do, every video is different. You've got to go and look through. Please do have a look. There must be something there that interests you. So thank you so much again for your time, and I look forward to seeing you in any of these other videos here.